And last night, right here in the Big Apple, candidates vying to be the next mayor clashed in their final debate before Election Day. Over the course of a wide-ranging and heated 90 minutes, Democrat Zoran Mamdani, Independent Andrew Cuomo, and Republican Curtis Sliwa traded barbs over topics including housing, immigration, and executive experience. Cuomo mocked frontrunner Mamdani as a kid and a divisive force, while Mamdani called Cuomo's political career decidedly in the past and tied the former governor to President Trump.
We first just heard from the Republican candidate for mayor, and then we heard from Donald Trump's puppet himself, Andrew Cuomo. You could turn on TV any day of the week, and you will hear Donald Trump share that his pick for mayor is Andrew Cuomo. And he wants Andrew Cuomo to be the mayor, not because it will be good for New Yorkers, but because it will be good for him. Look, Donald Trump ran on 3 promises. He ran on creating the single largest deportation force in American history. He ran on going after his political enemies, and he ran on lowering the cost of living. If he wants to talk to me about the 3rd piece of that agenda, I will always be ready and willing. But if he wants to talk about how to pursue the 1st and 2nd piece of that agenda at the expense of New Yorkers, I will fight him every single step of the way.
You have never had a job. You've never accomplished anything. There's no reason to believe you have any merit or qualification for 8.5 million lives. You don't know how to run a government. You don't know how to handle an emergency. And you've literally never proposed a bill on anything that you're now talking about in your campaign. You had the worst attendance record in the Assembly. And you gave yourselves the highest raise in the United States of America. You went from $110,000 to $140,000, and then you never showed up for work, and you missed 80% of the votes. Shame on you. Shame on you.
When given the opportunity to question Cuomo himself, Mamdani got personal, highlighting sexual harassment allegations that his opponent denies, including from an accuser who was in the debate audience.
You sought to access her private gynecological records. She cannot speak up for herself because you lodged a defamation case against her. I, however, can speak. What do you say to the 13 women that you sexually harassed?
Everything you just said was a misstatement.
Meanwhile, Mamdani addressed criticism over his comments on policing and concerns about his commitment to anti-Semitism. He confirmed that, if elected, he would retain New York Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch and vowed to protect Jewish New Yorkers. Let's bring in political anchor to New York One, making his Morning Joe debut, Errol Louis, who was one of the moderators at last night's New York City mayoral debate to great acclaim. Also with us, president of the National Action Network and host of MSNBC's Politics Nation, Reverend Al Sharpton, and co-founder and CEO of All In Together, Lauren Leader, is with us. I'll let you take the first question to Errol.
Well, Errol, I thought it was a contentious debate. Tell me what you think were the highlights and who came out of it more victorious. Clearly, Mamdani is way ahead in the polls and appears to be the one that was there to beat. Did Andrew Cuomo's attacks and Sliwa's performance in any way you think changed the tone of the campaign and the trajectory of who might win?
I thought the clip that Mika played was really the most forceful denunciation, the strongest kind of centralized attack that didn't stray off into any particular issues, but just talked about the fact that Mr. Mamdani is relatively new to politics. This really is structurally of big difference between the candidates.
Really
Andrew Cuomo, if elected, would be the oldest mayor in the history of New York. Mamdani, if elected, would be the youngest mayor in over 100 years. So this is clearly just a very, very different. The pain is so great for so many New Yorkers that Mamdani's rise is partly explained as a primal scream from people, especially young people who cannot get a foothold, who cannot get ahead, who do not see the system working for them.
Sure.
And they're saying, you can take all of your experience and throw it out the back door. We have to try something new because what's happening right now is not working.
Yeah. Joe.
Errol, I thought it was interesting last night. We actually saw some energy from Andrew Cuomo, who his supporters condemned him strongly during the Democratic primary for just not even running a campaign. And he's been, I think, kind way to describe his campaign is, say, flat. Many people even reaching out to us, suggesting that his appearance on our show last week was less than inspiring. But last night, he seemed to have fire for the first time. And tell me, any insights as to why Andrew Cuomo has been so flat during this campaign and why it took until last night for him to start hammering away really on the front runner's probably greatest vulnerability, and that is the fact that he just doesn't have a record that would suggest he's ready to run New York City?
You know, what I think happens, Joe, is Andrew Cuomo is the veteran of 7 successful statewide campaigns, 3 for his father, Mario Cuomo. Then he won as Attorney General and then 3 times as governor. So he really knows how to run a statewide campaign. But New York City is very different. You have to get out in the parks. You've got to be at the subway stations. You've got to get up where people are praying or playing or going to the supermarket. And it's not the kind of campaigning that he is used to doing. So I think he was a little slow at figuring out how much of a contact sport it really is at the ground level. And by the time he adjusted to that, a lot of the campaign had gone by. And then also, and there's just no getting around it, the question of Israel and Jewish New Yorkers and how it's treated and talked about in New York has fundamentally changed. There are 750,000 Muslims in New York now. Their voices were not heard in the era that Andrew Cuomo's politics were forged. It used to be that you would pledge allegiance to Israel or whatever the Israeli government happened to be doing, and that was sufficient to win whatever election was in front of you. It's just not like that anymore. It's a debate. It's a dispute. Mamdani came in and was firm in holding to the Netanyahu government's unpopularity in a lot of New York precincts, including among a lot of Jewish voters. And so I think Andrew Cuomo was slow to adapt to that reality. A lot of people in New York are slow to adapt to that reality. And I think that's why this has been such a fraught political debate.
Yeah, Reverend Al, you are, other than being our friend and being on this show, you have been described as one of the most powerful forces by the New York Times and others in America in Democratic politics. That certainly holds true in New York politics. I'm curious, in that capacity, how did you see last night's debate, and how do you see the end run for this campaign, the end game for this campaign? What direction do you see it heading?
Well, I think that what we saw last night probably was the better performance by Andrew Cuomo. I don't think it was enough. I think that, Mamdani, what Errol Louis just said, was able to deal with some issues and some things that he'd not been able to do. He's been the one making a lot of sense. I've not endorsed anyone, but I think he's made a lot of sense. I think that the problem Andrew Cuomo has is he came out fiery too late, and he's not been out on the streets and the subway stops and all. And he's not been able to handle the issues. But I think that the real thing that Zoran was able to hang around him was the whole situation of him being the choice of Donald Trump, which is widely unpopular among New York City voters. And I don't think Andrew Cuomo refuted that strongly enough. And if you're perceived to be the guy with Trump while we're seeing Canal Street invaded and other things, I don't think that helps you on Election Day.
Longtime conservative strategist Karl Rove has a new piece for the Wall Street Journal entitled How to Read the 2025 Election Tea Leaves. And Lauren, I'd love your take on this. He writes in part, quote, "In our highly polarized politics, small deviations from the norm in race results could reveal factors that prove decisive next year. New York is a good example. Socialist Zoran Mamdani is likely to win but he is the Democratic nominee, and registered Democrats make up 65% of the city's rolls. What if Mr. Mamdani's vote count falls well short of that number? Look, across the Hudson River to New Jersey. Despite the party's 13-point registration advantage, Democratic gubernatorial hopeful Mikey Sherrill leads by only 4.1 points in the Real Clear Politics average of recent polls. November's elections won't be a crystal ball for the midterms, but they'll reveal marginal advantages and disadvantages for the parties going into next year's elections. If they're smart, each side will be paying close attention to what's behind the headlines. That could make a real difference in what could be one of history's more consequential midterms. Stay tuned. Lauren, stand by. Joe, take it to Lauren.
Yeah, Lauren, you know, Karl Rove, you look at the polls, and Karl Rove has a good point here. New Jersey closer than it should be if you're a Democrat 1 year after Donald Trump got elected. Virginia closer than it should be if you go back to 2017, 1 year after Donald Trump was elected the first time. And Democrats, Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberg are two candidates that I think most of us thought would run away with these contests, are both locked in very tight races. What does that suggest?
I mean, there's so much to unpack there. First of all, nobody knows elections better than Karl Rove. I mean, he's always got brilliant insights on these things. But look, I think there's a couple things. The New York City election is anomalous in a lot of ways. There are a lot of New Yorkers who are what we were calling in the general election double haters, people who are deeply despondent over, frankly, both of the front runners. Jews in New York who are apoplectic over the possibility that Mamdani could win. There was a viral video this weekend, the rabbi from Park Avenue Synagogue urging New York Jews not to vote for Mamdani. But on the other hand, you've got Cuomo, who, as we've all said, is incredibly flawed. The more he talked about his record last night, the worse he sounded. I was in the room. It was just, it was so uncomfortable because his record is so flawed. And of course, the big hit that Silwa got was reminding him that he didn't just leave his post, he resigned in scandal and in embarrassment. So this is a really complicated race. The summer election results were weird. Half of New York wasn't even in the city in the summer. So you had a very small number of people voting. Anyway, look, to New Jersey and Virginia, I think the polls, we've seen this over and over again, and we've talked about this so many times on this show over the years. Those polls are really, really tough to read early. We don't know how they're going to turn out, but Americans are deeply divided. I mean, even the New York gubernatorial race was closer than Kathy Hochul would have ever wanted. People are really torn about their party affiliations. They're not voting straight party ID anymore. The party brands are broken. They're really looking at individual candidates. That can be a big advantage for women like Sherrill and Spanberger. It was in Michigan and Wisconsin in the midterms. We'll see.
Joe.
I mean, bottom line is the Democratic Party continues to struggle in a time that they should be thriving. And by the way, you don't have to look at polls. Is that because polls are highly unreliable? Who knows? Maybe New Jersey and Virginia sweep strongly in the Democratic column. We don't know that, but you just look at party registration. Democrats have been losing party registration in New Jersey since Donald Trump got elected in 2024. So who's to say?